But I did learn that if I could just snap into something at the top, like you said, if I grab an object, an emotional space, I'm the wiggly guy, I'm whatever the fuck it is, it gives me a roadmap then to protect myself,
Yeah.
to improvise the scene, and anything that comes at me, I can filter through whatever space I've created.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
Oh. Hey, there he is. How are you, Mick? So, before we even start talking to you, Mick, I have an intro that I've prepared that I hope will give the listeners an idea of who we're talking to, because a lot of our listeners are from the stand-up world. Even though I also do improv here in Dallas and attract quite a few improvisers to this realm, but this is a real treat for, especially for the improvisers in the group, as witnessed by the people that I told I was going to be interviewing you, and they got really excited.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. So, okay. So today's guest is one of the most influential voices in modern improvisation. He's the founder of Chicago's Annoyance Theater, a longtime director and artistic consultant of the Second City, a Jeff Award-winning director, and the author of Improvise, Seen from the Inside Out, a book that shaped generations of improvisers, including myself, a big fan. He's directed comedy legends like Tina Fey, Stephen Colbert, Jason Sudeikis, Martin Short, Jeff Garland, and David Sedaris. And I had the privilege of studying under him when he directed our Second City Las Vegas cast. Please welcome to the stage, Mick Napier.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much.
That's a lot of stuff, but I wanted people to understand that you come from a real wide realm of contributions in the improv world.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been around the block or two here.
I was telling Chris that you were my instructor in Chicago, and you gave me a piece of advice as an improviser that has stuck with me ever since. And then eventually you directed me in at Vegas with the Second City show at the Flamingo there. The advice you gave me, and this was will lead me to my questions about your book, which I got and read, and which is you have told us as improvisers to take care of ourselves first, when the inclination is to often care about what the other person, your scene partner, is doing and trying to manipulate yourself around that. You pulled me aside after a series of scenes and you said, Mike, you got to stop taking care of everybody else except for yourself. You've got to come into the scene and own what you have. And I remember it directly after that note, I did a scene where I was eating a sandwich on a board, like a sandwich board, and it turned out we were in a Zeppelin, but the sandwich board became in the Zeppelin, and it became a big part of that scene. And I was like, oh my God, what great advice. And I still carry that to this day. That's a big tenet of your book. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I can. It kind of came from this bizarre, like when I first started learning improvisation, I learned in college with a group of friends, and I had never seen improvisation, let alone had done it. I just read a book called Something Wonderful Right Away by Jeff Sweet, and I started learning on my own. So by the time I got to Chicago and I began to take classes and stuff, I was a little meta the whole time that I was taking these classes. And I mean, you know me well enough, Mike, to know I'm pretty hateful and cynical.
With a big heart, a Grinch heart.
With a big heart. But I see that in you as well. So it's a good quality. I think it's a good quality.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I started to note, I started to hear a lot of talk about like take care of your partner first, support your partner, and all that, and the yes and kind of love fest that comes with improvisation, which is very valuable in a lot of ways, improvisationally and life skills wise. But I did become quite cynical about it in a way as well, and I just began to notice that whenever I felt supported on stage, it was because the person I was on stage with made some bold choice and took care of their own thing. And by them doing that, I felt supported. So I began to feel like every time I made a strong choice for myself, I inadvertently or consequentially or consciously supported my partner as well. So that's when I began to invert that. It sounds selfish on the outset, but it's actually quite a supportive move, in my opinion, to have the wherewithal to take care of a position first for yourself, so that that powerful choice can be the thing that supports your partner. That's kind of where it comes from.
It reminds me of when they tell you to, as a parent on an airplane that's crashing, to take the oxygen first and then adjust it to your kid, because you need to make sure you have your oxygen first before you can save somebody else.
That is true, and I believe that, except for that one specific example, because I don't like children.
I would never take care of a kid. Uh, I tend to shy away from doing any improvised coaching to kids either. They're too good. They're too natural. But the idea of that, taking care of yourself first, is really, it goes against your instincts as a beginner improviser. I've learned, like, that's what I was fighting. I was fighting the whole, almost like the Christian, take care of your brother first or sister first and then worry about yourself, because that's what Jesus would do. And I don't know if Jesus would make a good improviser because of that attitude. And then you called me on that. And that's what I like about you, Mick, is I mean, you joke about being cynical, but and the cranky dick, overseeing everybody and calling people out, but you're not like that at all. You made me feel so good about that note. You gave it to me in a way that taught everyone else around, but also stuck with me. Like, not you're doing this wrong, but have you ever considered trying it a different way and see how that affects those around you? And I did that, and it was amazing. So I appreciate the way, not just the note, but the way you gave the note.
Well, I feel like that with you, Mike, you had kind of extra added bonus points because you were also in the genesis of your stand-up. And a lot of times I've noticed that stand-up, while it's extremely important to exhibit and demonstrate a strong point of view while you're doing stand-up, I believe that sometimes when stand-ups enter the world of improv, they want to be like good guys and like, okay, I'm a stand-up and this is where I do, this is where I'm myself. Now I'm in this world where I'm really supposed to support each other, and this is the way that I'm going to play that game. And sometimes that supersedes what they've learned already in stand-up, which is to take a strong position. So I remember that, and I kind of saw you volleying that, and
Yeah.
that's just a testament of you being a kind person and wanting to assimilate
Right.
into an environment and not like step on people's toes and just kind of learn that way. And I just noticed that. But
Yeah, that's great.
you did make that choice, and that carried over when we worked together in Vegas. Just
Yeah.
strong choices everywhere.
Speaking of Vegas, Vegas was a great experience. We got to know each other really well, on stage and off stage, because
Yeah.
it's Vegas. But just to give the listeners a quick overview of what it was a sort of a sister station of the Second City Theater in Chicago, that opened up in Vegas at the Flamingo. And so it was meant to be a sketch, like a best of show, with some original peppered in to that.
Yeah.
And they got Jason Sudeikis, Kay Cannon, me, Seamus McCarthy, a couple of other, Jennifer Eslin, a couple of other, Dan Bacadol, I think, did that.
Oh my God, that's right. Okay.
Right. And a lot of big eventual names came out of that, and they called on you to direct it. I'm just curious, from your point of view, what was that opportunity like? What was that? Where were you at in your path, and how did that impact it?
Well, it was a real kind of pivotal moment for that. I've been directing a little bit at Second City, but when I was asked to direct the Vegas gig, not only was I happy because Jennifer was in it, but I knew a few people in it, and also I had just never spent any time in Vegas, so I was excited about doing that. I believe, if you might correct me, I believe it was 2000, like 2001, wasn't it?
It was the year of 9/11. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that real well because I flew from Vegas to New York when Martin DeMott was in the hospital, and he passed away during that time. Martin DeMott, for those listening, is a very beloved and renowned improv teacher that worked at Second City and lived in New York for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Vegas was a mindfuck. I don't know if you remember this, but we learned really, really quickly, if you remember, that what we couldn't do on stage was make fun of gambling.
They didn't want that at all.
Do you remember that?
Hey, that's why we're here.
It was crazy.
We
Like,
found that out because we did the first couple of original scenes we did were poking fun, like a meta kind of a angle, and it didn't go over it well at all.
right. You're really making fun of those people. You know, you were telling them they were stupid for being in Vegas.
And they were.
They were. I likened it to kind of like you're doing a show at like an amusement park, like Six Flags or something, and you're making fun of people for, you know, getting on roller coasters.
You roller coaster losers.
That's right.
Eating French fries and with cheese melted on it. Loser.
Exactly. Fucking idiots waiting in lines, you know, all that.
Wearing the hat. Yeah, it's a funny learning curve that we went through at Vegas, and we still I remember you gave us the freedom to try a lot of things. I remember Jason and I did I think we were lion tamers that it went bad. Who are the famous lion tamers that are in Vegas?
Oh yeah. One of them's got fucked over by the lion.
Yeah, right. And we were doing a parody of that, and we realized quickly that didn't, you know, it had. Then we did the fountains where we were making fun of, and people didn't like that. You know,
Right. That's right. The Bellagio.
this is what we love. This is our thing. Well, what was your in terms of like your direction as a director? What was your instruction over us? I'm just curious. I know what came my way, but I'm just wondering what started your journey when Kelly Leonard pulled you aside and said, "Hey, I want you to run this ship."
Well, it's always very funny because Second City's been strange with me. Whenever I do a show there, for example, I did the show after Pinata Full of Bees, and Pinata Full of Bees is this really famous Second City show that did great. That Adam McKay and Tom Dennis, you know, were behind and stuff.
Tom Dennis, the two big Saturday Night Live guys and eventual movie producers.
Yeah,
and
Scott Adsit was in that, and Rachel Dratch.
I love that show. Pinata Full of Bees just blew my mind, and it was.
Me too. Yeah. I was living in New York when I came back to Chicago, and they asked me to direct the main stage. That was the first show that I saw, or that was the show that was up. And I remember seeing it and thinking, "Fuck me, this is the show that I would direct."
That was the first thought I had was when you mentioned that in your book. I was like, Mick would be the perfect director. Like if Adam and Tom hadn't done that to Second City, where they busted out of a sketch blackout format and gone into sort of a Quentin Tarantino, like all over the place sort of thing, you would have done it. You would have totally been that. That'd have been your baby.
Yeah, it kind of would have been my thing that time. So the reason I bring it up is that I remember Kelly Leonard telling me, and for him it was coming out of a space of support. But he said, "Hey, don't worry. We don't expect your show to be anywhere near as good as Pinata Full of Bees, so don't even worry about it." And I'm like, "Well, that's fucking horrible."
And we kind of expect it to suck, so go get them.
Yeah.
That's
so
funny.
In Vegas, there were those kind of caveats, like we don't know whether it's gonna work or not. We have this strange relationship with the Flamingo. The theater's bizarre, like the windows come down like a James Bond movie. They do, like right before the show.
There's a 90-year-old valet that's going to seat everybody in the slowest way possible.
Yes, and you're going to hear slot machines all the time. So there were just a lot of warnings about that. There weren't so many content, like show content thoughts, because I think that they were lost as well.
Yeah.
And if you remember, the wonderful producer of that was Robin Johnson.
Yeah, Robin was great.
And she was so great and open. So I believe that we were all kind of learning what that was.
Yeah.
I do remember, though, they put us up in the Flamingo when we were working that show. And there was a time when I realized I had not left the grounds of the Flamingo in like 7 or 8 days.
That's great.
Like you're just
because they fed us. We get to eat at the cafeteria there too.
Oh my God!
And so you didn't have to leave. You were just you know, and all your gambling needs were met.
and they never closed. You could drink all night long.
Exactly.
And
They're constantly pumping in air conditioning, fresh air, oxygen, and all that stuff.
was it called the Garden Bar or something?
Yeah, I remember the garden bar. We would go across the way, and it was kind of the equivalent of what's the bar across from Second City that we used to go to?
Well, it could have been the Last Act, or it might
The
have
Last Act.
been Corcoran's.
Yeah, and same deal where improvisers need a place to recreate all the beauty and gold we just went through as maker uppers, you know.
Did you ever close the ale house over there on
Yeah,
North?
absolutely. Yeah, Chicago was is I have such fond memories of that place at like 4:35 in the morning when, the taxis are lined up in front because we're all stumbling out of there. And
Yes, indeed.
yeah. Well, so just getting back to your book, I really loved. I'm beginning to teach improv. I'm on the long form team at Dallas Comedy Club, and we
Okay.
perform weekly there. And right now we're doing a Herald, which is a big deal for us because it is, as you know, a more advanced long form format that takes a good team to get together and reproduce every week.
Yeah.
But I'm also teaching there at Dallas Comedy Club, a level 3 class. And I was so panicked before because I hadn't taught since Second City. So I was so panicked teaching. The night before my class of Friday, I looked online for your book and I got the Kindle version of it and crammed it in my skull the night before, just so I had a reminder of the philosophy I learned from you and from other improvisers. And your big the three things I took from that book were, number one was it taking care of yourself, like we talked about. Number two, I really took out from there that you bring something in with you when you come into the scene, especially like object work or an emotion, but something tangible that your mind is focused on, so that you don't overthink what you're saying. You're more or less doing something and then creating a relationship with someone else. And that really affected me because now how I'm teaching and how I'm performing, I'm just doing that automatically. And it just pulls your head right out of the equation and gets you just thinking, okay, I'm brushing my teeth. How do I brush my teeth? I know how to brush my teeth. And then someone talks to me and I can just react to them as a toothbrusher, as opposed to standing there with my hands trapped at my sides and being a talking head. So could you talk about that, about the idea of the importance of having something to do on top of a conversation?
Absolutely. A lot of what you just described is exactly the way I would improvise for a while. I would just stand there and like think about what to do and shit.
Because you're
And
smart. You're a smart guy. You're clever, and you could
well,
do.
thanks. And I'm kind of playfully hateful and fairly negative on shit on stage. So a lot of my improvisation was kind of very observational and objective. When I started improvising in Chicago, I smoked like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. So you could actually smoke on stage. So a lot of my shit was just standing on stage smoking and, fucking going off on people and shit. So I had to really redefine what improvisation was for me, especially when the idea of the value of character and the value of emotional lives and vulnerability and everything else that comes with improvisation, and then eventually the variety needed in sketch comedy. All of that was very challenging for me, but I did learn that if I could just snap into something at the top, like you said, if I grab an object, an emotional space, I'm the wiggly guy, I'm whatever the fuck it is, it gives me a roadmap then to protect myself,
Yeah,
to improvise the scene, and anything that comes at me, I can filter through whatever space I've created.
it's great.
Like a perfect scene for me would be the lights come up. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I just fucking do something, pull something out of my ass. And like you said, brushing my teeth. And I realize I'm bored and I'm a bored guy brushing my teeth. And now I don't really care if someone comes in and says, we're on Mars, or do you have a hammer at this hardware store, or I have cancer, or whatever the they say, or if they say dad or son, or you're my gay lover. I don't give a shit. I'm going to respond as a bored guy brushing my teeth. I've protected myself and armed myself with that. If someone comes in and says, the house is on fire, I can go, okay, just a minute. Where is it? I don't,
But still bored guy with the toothbrush, and somehow that's going to incorporate into the fire.
yeah. And I think that in doing that, I think that you don't literally, but I think you subconsciously are declaring that for your audience. Like in that example, the second you make that move and acknowledge it, which is another step, just kind of catching what you did,
Yeah.
I think that you're saying to the audience in a weird way, hey, I'm the bored toothbrush guy. And it might evolve into the bored getting ready for work guy. But I promise you, audience, I'm going to continue getting ready with hygiene stuff. And I promise you, I'm not going to break my contract with you. I've declared myself to be a bored guy, and I'm not going to break that. Because the second I create, I'm a bored guy brushing my teeth, and someone comes in and says the house is on fire, and I go, oh my God, and dismiss it. I've broken in my empirical idea of improvisation. I've broken that contract with the audience. But I can go like, oh my God, the house is on fire. Hold on a second. I have to finish brushing my teeth. Like that's possible.
Yeah.
As long as I'm aware of that contract I've made with myself and the audience and keep that ball in the air, I think that that's at least increases your chance of creating a good scene when you improvise. I also believe that about stand-up. I believe that you create a point of view, declare your point of view, and live up to it. And that's what's delightful. And I believe that that's how one of my favorite things in stand-up isn't the content, it's the throwaways that people use. It's the Joan Rivers, it's the Rodney Dangerfield. It's all of that shit. I love that shit. Those throwaways. And I don't know, all of that. I don't want to talk about stand-up because you guys know more about that than I do, but it reminds me of that, where you just declare your point of view and you live up to it.
Well, we call in my methodology, the Funny Muscle books that I've written, the methodology I use, the name it and claim it, is the comedy lens, which is sort of your original angle take, your view, your visor that you wear to separate all the other trash away and keep your angle original. And I think you're right. I think as an improviser, that's your job for every single scene, is to have a new lens that you're going to look at that scene through, and you find that out initially in the first couple sentences, according to you and according to my experience. And I love that you say in the book, and I've taught this and I've done this, which is take a moment and go, what did I just do? I'm the guy who's doing morning rituals or brushing teeth or whatever, and then like think of that as like a contract and say, this is who I am for this scene, just for the scene, and it just answers so many questions.
Yeah, and it just takes a half a second to get what you did, and then the how of what you did. I'm not just brushing my teeth. I'm bored doing it, or I'm
emotion,
or I'm jittery, or whatever the fuck. Like, I got that.
Yeah, and then that creates a character that's not a contrived thing. It's an emotionally based thing that we all recognize. And I've been bored before, and it's fun to watch somebody heighten boredom and heighten morning hygiene, and in a bored way while in the middle of a fire, and that's what improv is that heightening and the creating a relationship with whoever you're with while you're doing it. Now you talk about stand-up. The third thing I thought your book really impacted me with is what I related really directly to stand-up, which is why I even reached out to you to try to get you to come talk to us and my audience of stand-up wannabes and people who are learning this craft. And that is, in the improv scene, one of our jobs is not to tell jokes. We're not trying to be clever about our wording so that we get the crowd to laugh at our surprising take on this situation, because often that crashes the relationship, it crashes the path of the scene, it even crashes that contract you talked about that you create with your audience and yourself at the beginning of each scene. But what you say is the job of the improviser is to create a context in which we all recognize what's going on. Some of the examples you use are like I'm buying something at the 7-Eleven. You said there's a business deal that's going on. It could be someone getting pulled over for a speeding ticket, but it's a context that we all recognize. And the job of the improvisers as a team is to create that context through object work and through what we say and the relationship we build very quickly. And then the humor comes from when we break that context. It's when we work from outside of that context in a way that we don't expect. Like the example you said is in the business meeting, someone pulls out a yo-yo, but they're a very serious businessman, but he's doing a yo-yo at the same time, and that makes us laugh because we're like, what? And it breaks that context and that expectation. And in the stand-up sense, we do that with the premise and the setup. We use the premise and the setup to set up a context ourselves of what we're talking about in the realm, the angle, the comedy lens that we're using to get that angle. And then we're misdirecting the audience to think we're going in a normal direction with that context. And then our punchline surprises them with something outside of that context. And but it still makes sense within that context. For instance, the businessman can use the yo-yo. He's got a hand and he's got an arm. So it makes sense, but it just doesn't make sense in the context. So I thought immediately when you did that, I was like, we're doing the same thing. And as a guy who does both art forms, it was a real breakthrough for me that you said that and brought that to my attention, because it made me realize there is a lot of commonality between these two art forms.
I agree. And it is, I like think of it as creating that context and then surprising from within that context, or surprising from your point of view, et cetera. Because you can't merely be bored and brush your teeth for 4 minutes and say the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And I often use examples like everyone knows. I think I've used like Ferris Bueller. You can't just film Ferris Bueller on the couch for 2 hours. Yeah, you're watching him take a day off, but he has to surprise and heighten to the point where he ends up in a parade in the middle of Chicago to further demonstrate how much he's taking the day off. And that's funny. Those are the surprises that come from within it. So you're not violating the context of him taking a day off, but you're finding every way you can to surprise within that context. And I think it's the same thing you're talking about. But I also believe that you can go away from the context as long as you come back to it and as long as you're aware of all that. And I think
that's high level stuff. That's above the net stuff.
Yeah, but I think stand-ups do that too, in a really great way.
Yeah. Have you done stand-up? Have you ever tried it?
I did years and years ago. And
did you do meta stand-up, or you doing stand-up about being a stand-up, or did you
No. I did that once, and it was really funny. Like, I did stand-up for real, and the one time I did stand-up about stand-up was the second time I did it. And I decided to talk about how people failed, like with a second time blues thing. And I succeeded. I was horrible.
Yep.
And it was the worst fucking set I've ever done in my life on stage. Because
that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of improvisers who try to do stand-up do meta acts where they're because they're so shocked at being forced to be the solo attention, and then to being forced to be funny, and to create this this setup and punchline game that we do over and over again. It feels very unnatural to an improviser.
I know. There's a lot of people where I have a lot of young people where I have said, you're doing a lot of comedy about comedy. Someday you're going to have the courage to do comedy.
Yeah. That's the point of the question is did you have you said the first time you did it, you had the courage to do comedy, which is literally taking an idea and using your comedy lens to set up a misdirection and then surprise them at the end and do that game. It sounds like that's what you did initially, and then you got in your head about doing the thing.
Yeah, my second time. But my third time, I went back to doing what I had succeeded at the first time, which was successful. I did stand up for about 3 years.
I can believe
a lot of it at a place called Roxy's on West Fullerton. That's no longer there, I don't think.
That's a hipster room, right? That was one of those.
It was, yeah.
Arts. Yeah, I love those. Those people really listen to you in those rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like black motorcycle jacket, head down, morose, kind of like everything's horrible. I worked at a restaurant called Mrs. Levy's Deli that was on the first floor of the Sears Tower. And I remember one of my jokes being like, this is the story of my life. I work in the world's tallest building on the first floor.
That's great.
Yeah. And now you can't do that joke because it's not the second Sears Tower, nor is it the tallest building in the world.
Now the joke is just too wordy. That's funny. Well, I love that you did that, and I commend any one who crosses over from one to the other. I always say there's two love languages between stand up and improvisation. The improvisation, the love language is yes and in stand up the love language is ball busting. And when you don't speak both languages, it gets very confusing to cross streams.
I agree. And I'll go so far as to say that something that's I'm observing that's not helping improvisational actors who want to do stand up, a thing that's not helping them at all right now. I'll just say it in two words, Matt Rife. Like
Yeah.
they improvisers feel like that because they've been so affirmed with people watching people do crowd work that they'll just kind of slide into stand up and do crowd work.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that there's a huge trajectory where you earn the right.
Yeah.
You know this more than I, but you just can't do that successfully. And if you do it successfully, then I would have a credibility problem with it. I find a lack of integrity with it in a lot of ways. So
It's challenging as a comic to deal with my algorithm spitting me a bunch of crowd work bits because well, what you do is as somebody who rises above it a little bit, you begin to watch the patterns and you can see the pattern of the crowd work comic working. What do you do for a living? That's stupid. What how long have you been together? That's stupid. And there's just certain questions you ask and it gets really redundant and it's like low-hanging fruit.
I know.
Yeah.
But I see that with improvisers.
Yeah.
They kind of look at it. It's like, well, it's just improv. I'll just fuck around. Yeah, it's not.
No, the first thing I say to this, I teach stand up also at the Dallas Comedy Club. And the first thing I say to my students is this is a writing class as well as a performance class. If
Yeah.
you're an improviser and you're here to learn stand up, understand that you've got to write every week and you've got to rewrite and you've got to hone these things. I wanted to ask you one more question, and I know Chris has some questions for you.
For sure.
I was privileged enough not only to be directed and taught by you, but I was privileged enough to befriend and be taught by Del Close, who is a guru of all improv in Chicago in terms of improv as a product.
So you were in a class of Dell's?
Yes, I had Del as a class. It was a blessing and a curse what he said to me. He called me out as he said something after a scene. He said, "The rest of you are lucky to have this guy in your class," and which was a compliment, of course, to have him single me out like that. But then after that, I was kind of that dick that everybody was like, "Oh, I guess that's Del's little boy, or whatever." But I loved that when I learned more about him and about the history of improv in Chicago. I loved the lesson I learned, which is Del Close was so in love with improv that he wanted it to be its own art form. He wanted people to enjoy it just for its the scenes that we create out of heightening and yes-anding each other and building relationships. And then he created the long form, the Herald, as a result of that, and opened up IO, Improv Olympic at the time, with Sharna Halperin. As a person who wanted improv to be the product and then began to develop through classes that skill set. And then along comes Mick Napier, and I'm not sure of the whole story, but I know Susan Messing was in there, and created the Annoyance Theater, which was almost an alternative to what Del Close was doing, which got rid of the safety of some of what he was doing and allowed people to think outside the box even greater. Could you talk about that journey and about what it's like to be the next Del Close? Because I feel like you're like once Del passed, we needed a new king of improv to force it to the new place that it needs to be. And I feel like you're that guy, or at least one of the guys who is in charge of that direction. Obviously, people like Adam McKay and people like Tom Janis help to do that too. But in terms of someone who's in Chicago doing the thing, I feel like you're that guy. Could you talk about that a little?
Sure. I have a love and hate relationship with the idea of being that guy.
I knew it.
Yeah, for sure. I hate that, like the word guru is the worst word in the world.
Yeah.
When Del was dying, like 2 days before he died, I visited him and he said a lot of funny things, but one funny thing he said to me was, "Well, I guess I'm supposed to pass the baton of improvisation on to you, but I have to tell you, I really just don't give a fuck." So I'm like,
That's exactly why you have to do it.
that's exactly what he should have said, and I loved it.
Right. It's perfect. Of
Um,
course he didn't give a fuck. You can't if you're that guy.
Yeah. And he was really great. Like he and I had a good relationship. I had the pleasure of being directed by him in a show called Honor Finnegan versus the Brain of the Galaxy. It was a
Wow.
sketch show and it was great. And so how do I feel about that? I feel okay about it in a lot of ways. The annoyance wasn't in stark reaction to IO or Second City. It was just kind of out of a very young desire to do the kind of comedy and theater that I had grown to love through my respect for like John Waters and Monty Python, a lot of weird or kind of more subversive shit. So our first show was splatter theater, blood show, 13 people die on stage.
Yep. Yep.
Our second show was ran for 14 years. It was called Co-ed Prison Sluts, the
Yep.
musical. So we had a lot of weird shows. And then I think what the other thing the annoyance did, not really out of choice, just out of kind of the way it happened, was that we started doing a lot of different shows within the same week. And that model really wasn't around at that time. And I remember Dell walking in the annoyance once and screaming, "Where's Mick Napier, that prolific motherfucker?" And what he was talking about is at that time we had 13 different shows a week at the annoyance.
Whoa.
And now we have like 32 different shows a week.
It's like a TV.
Oh my God. Well, my joke about the annoyance now is we have 30 shows a week and a couple of them are really funny.
Hey, we got to try.
You got to try. But I think that's something that the annoyance did do.
Yeah.
And then how do I feel about that position? I kind of go up and down about it. You know, there's age that comes with it and all that, which I kind of deflect. I've written 4 books now, and the third one I just finished it's going to the publisher, and it's just about directing and stuff. So I think that raises that idea, that kind of thing about me and stuff. I don't feel bad about it, and I try to treat everyone with a great deal of kindness and all of that. When people ask me what was it like working with Stephen Colbert, I will often say it was exactly like working with you right now. It's the exact same experience.
Yeah.
So I try to be supportive and stuff. The thing I didn't care about Dell sometimes was his being unavailable socially or inaccessible. But I think that he wasn't mean or anything. Well, sometimes he was mean, but I don't think it was so much that as just him having a few like social skills that were questionable. He didn't like being around people. He was the king of like, which I kind of thought was funny. You'd be in the middle of a conversation with him, like 2 or 3 people, and he would just trail off talking. He'd be like, "Well, that's interesting. I think that I could do it." And he would just walk away, Where are you going, dude? Where are you going, dude?
Yes, we're done.
Yeah. But I think that was a bit of that. I think another area we departed in improvisationally is, as you probably know, teaching Harold. A lot of times long form encourages improvisers to play near themselves, play slow, and play to the top of their intelligence and all that. And it makes for kind of a very thinky improviser in some ways. And it is difficult then to become like a great versatile sketch actor from that kind of training over and over. And add to that there's a stigma about long form improvisation kind of being a better or more integrity laden kind of improvisation. And that kind of pretension fuels the fire of people playing nearer themselves and all that. And then when they try to get into Second City, as you probably have noticed, it's difficult to just flip that switch and become a versatile sketch comedy performer. So I think the annoyance departed from that a little bit and became a little more silly, a little more subversive, and a little more character driven. That was a long answer. Sorry.
Well, that's great. Well, I know Chris has a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
He's actually read your book, Improvise, also.
Thank you for reading it.
Yeah, you used the word thinky improviser as a negative earlier, and my question involves how do you get people to get out of their left brain, like analytical, self-conscious self, and just kind of like find that like heightened flow, right brain whether it's a comic, whether they're writing, whether they're doing anything, but it seems like a lot of your advice is like, don't follow the rules because the rules force left brain, analytical brain, whereas improvers are better being just go, do, heighten.
Yeah,
Choose.
I think a lot of that is what Mike and I were discussing is that in the first, at least for me, in that first like 5 or 6 seconds, I can either get into this real measured state of my improvisation, like thinking about what the fuck am I doing? What's my partner doing? What am I going to do? What am I going to say? I didn't say it. Fuck, I didn't say it. I'm going to say something. Oh my God, I didn't say it. Okay, now I'm going to say something. Hi, I said hi. That sucks. Just get into that mode in about, for me, in like 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me at the top of that scene to just do anything. Hello. I mean, whatever the it is, just snap into something. And that increases my chances. Because my theory behind that is like, you don't, like it, you don't, there's two things you don't do. I kind of try to write about this, but I don't think I do very well, to be honest. Like, you're either, when you're improvising a scene, if you start out in that thinking mode that you described, it's very rare that you're going to like the lights come up, you grab a cup and you look at your partner and look at the cup. It's very rare that suddenly you're going to go, "Hi, Jimmy." You're not going to do that. You're going to stay. You're going to stay in that way. But if the lights come up and you go, "It's a beautiful day," you're probably not going to go, "It's a beautiful day. What's up?" And they get in that mode.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that, and thank you for those brilliant characters. You could use those.
Done it.
God damn. It's also like 100 degrees in Chicago, and in Canada there's these wildfires, so there's smoke everywhere in Chicago right now, and they're replacing the windows of our apartment. So I'm sitting here like freaking out hot.
Chicago gets so hot off of that lake.
Oh, it does. But yeah, my feeling is that if you create a real silly, fun, bold choice at the top, you're not going to then just kind of, your chances of just easing into that state of thinking are far less. But if you start, if you start out with something strong, but you're not going to, if you start off thinking like, what am I doing? Why am I grabbing this? What's going on? The chances of you snapping into a really fun, playful kind of character are probably slim to none, because the more you're in your head, the more you think, and I just really believe that to be true. And I find those first few seconds vital for myself to get out of it. Now, that said, I know people that can sit in silence for 30 seconds and then create this amazing tapestry of characters. And that the window, like I created really strong, goofy characters, but I think that even when you're doing long form, that same psychology exists. So when the lights come up, even if you are playing it slow and near yourself, I think that same snap can happen through a slight emotional point of view or a slight state of mind point of view or an attitude where you're not going, yeah, but you are going, and that is the same as that snapping. It at least gives you something. I'm just a strong believer that you do something at the top of the scene is far more important than what you do.
I think you use as an example in the book a golfer's swing and being self-conscious about your arms and your legs and your hips. Either that or I thought of that comparison when you were describing it, and I'm just attributing that to you because it's brilliant. But I really like that. Really touched me a lot as an improviser, which is to think about, don't ask the questions, yes and agree with the relationship, where am I at, who am I talking to, give them a name, and all those rules that we throw and barf on to new improvisers. If you're all thinking about that, it just messes you up. Like you said, within 3 seconds you're just like, I said hi.
It messed me up. It really did. And the same thing happened to me when I started learning at Second City about just exposition, like finding the who, what, and where in the first 3 lines of the scene and stuff. Like, I really think that there's a whole set of stuff that look good on paper, but when you're on stage, there's a psychology that happens that really doesn't allow you to access those things in a very valuable way. They become detrimental. That you're thinking about those things become detrimental to you just having fun and making a good, strong choice and stuff. At least for me, that happened. Because then you get to a point also, like if you think of the worst question you can ask in improvisation, it would probably be like, what are you doing? Asking your partner that. But if you had a scene and the lights came up and someone said, "What are you doing?" You've
Hmm.
got a character behind it. Suddenly, even improv instructors don't even notice that the person asked a question. All they notice really is that they made a playful, strong choice. The question becomes secondary. The literal fact that you ask a question becomes secondary to the fact that you courageously made a strong choice with a point of view. And I've seen that happen a lot. Like all the improv rules, you can pretty much strike down if it has a character or a point of view attached to it.
Yeah, you
Telling
can say
stories.
no. There's ways to say no that I've seen
Absolutely.
high level or improvisers do, and the real high level improvisers know how to respond to that no because they get that you're really saying yes.
You are. Yeah. I think for me, agreement is just like a general agreement of the space, and circumstance. But
Yeah.
the real guts of it is like what you do at the beginning, the point of view, the character, how those two things come together and create the relationship and all that. That was a long fucking answer. Sorry, Chris.
That's perfect. How do you translate that to, like, say, on stage for a comic, or even like you're working for an hour writing humor? How do you flip off the left brain and turn on the right brain? I know in some of your exercises is just write for 5 minutes and give yourself permission to be shitty and don't
Yeah.
criticize it.
Well, I think with any time, this is a bizarre thing that probably gets in more presentation kind of skill shit. But like, I think that there's different ways of even approaching a microphone. Like you could be sitting, you could be looking around, you could get up, take a breath, take a step, take a breath, and then approach a microphone. Or you can get up and head the microphone, and attack just that simple action to trick the adult brain in your mind that's going to start judging you and shit into saying fuck it and going out there. Like even if I'm doing something that appears to be stand up or a keynote or something like that, in my brain I will just snap and sometimes literally snap beside my head to indicate that I'm just saying fuck it, I'm going, and
Hmm.
to attack it so that I don't ease into the experience. Even if easing into the experience is part of my point of view, then I'm going to snap into the guy that looks like he's easing into the
Mhm.
experience. Everything is choice then in that way.
It's really interesting to hear you
And it
talk,
doesn't
Mick.
always work. It doesn't always work, but those are just like tricks.
Yeah, good hack trick.
I was gonna say it's really interesting to hear you talk, Mick, because in from my point of view, a guy like you would seem to have the most confidence on stage, would seem to not be in your head at all because that's just how you've been trained. And the fact that you have still dealt with this and also had to create ways around it in order to be a better performer just makes me feel like, oh, okay, so he's human.
Oh my God, it scares me to death.
It's
And
funny.
I haven't drank alcohol in 2 years. Like, but there's been times where I've stopped drinking. It used to be that, 2 shots of bourbon, like, oh, that's the thing. Of course, it's not anymore. So I'm 63 and I'm still going through cycles of trying to get out of my head at the top of an improv scene or any other experience. And you just told me that you were nervous about teaching. I get nervous every time I fucking teach.
Really?
Yeah, and I have to snap into it. Every
That's great.
every single time I teach or any time I run auditions, like at Second City, I will take just a second to remember with auditions, I will take a second to remember what it was like when I auditioned because I want to treat that with respect and kindness with the people that are auditioning because it's so fucking scary to do. And anytime I improvise or teach or whatever, I just have a thought like, I want to make this a good experience. No matter if I'm bitched all day long that I have to teach a class later, I will take a half a second and go, okay, I'm going to make this experience good. Like right
Funny.
now, we have people that are doing intensives at the Annoyance, and there's people that fly in from fucking Poland and wherever.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, they're flying in from Poland, spending a lot of money and staying in Chicago. The least I can do is get off my fucking ass and teach a great fucking class for these
Yeah.
people.
That's funny. Yeah, it's a big responsibility to have students. I've learned they're putting their trust in you that you're going to give them something from the beginning to the end of the class that's going to change how they do this thing, and it's going to make it better for them or easier for them, or they're going to feel more confident about themselves about doing it. And it's really hard because it's an art form that takes years to perfect. So to give them something quickly in 3 hours is tough.
It is hard. Then you get the extra added fun of performing in front of your students, which
Oh
is
God.
a
That's
blast.
that what you're going to teach us? How to be a jerk?
That's always fun. It's interesting that you come at your first stand-up class with the writing first. I'm curious, like, why do you do that? I would guess I know why, but I'm curious about what the answer would be.
Well, what I learned as a comedian is there is a methodology, and there's a game to be played, which is in its essence premise, setup, and punchline. And that's the most antique way to express what happens in a stand-up's joke. Now we add act outs at the end. And what I did as a mistake was I went straight to the act outs without giving the joke beforehand. And that ended up pissing off a lot of stand-ups because they were like, why don't you learn how to write a joke before you get up there and get all crazy?
Okay.
And because I had a fundamental misunderstanding of what I was doing. I was combining the worlds without understanding both worlds individually. So now what I try to do for my students and what I did with writing these books was to create a methodology that breaks down what I call it the humor blueprint, which is the premise, setup, punchline format, using a comedy lens to inform that, and then using what I call humor heightening devices to create those punchlines at the end. And so in my classes, you're learning how to write using these tools that I'm giving you for your tool belt. And you, as a stand-up, owe that to the crowd. Talk about a contract you have with the crowd. You are saying to them, I am not only funny, I'm funnier than you, and I've thought about this stuff, and I've prepared it, and I'm going to present it to you in a way that's going to make you laugh, in a way that you've never laughed before. And I can't do that the way I want to do that as an improviser because it's a different art form. I'm writing jokes and then I'm delivering them to you. Those are the first two.
Yeah.
I say you have 5 hats as a stand-up. The first 2 hats you wear are a joke writer and then as a joke performer. And the art form is to perform it like as if it's the first time I've ever done it and it's just coming off the top of my head. So I have to write that and perform it in a way that it seems like that, which is very difficult. So that's why I teach them that.
That's great. That's cool. I was just curious.
Yeah, and it's shocking to people that you have to write. It's kind of disappointing in a way because it's very it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of improvisers when they get to sketch comedy, the writing becomes a thing. And it's a skill set that's often not taught very much, as you know, like with improvisers. They get into a sketch show and suddenly the writing, which is a whole other skill set, isn't really attended to that often.
I was trying to do some of your exercises. I really like chapter 10 of your book because I'm a learner and a homework person. And I was trying to do the gibberish one. And I realized I just kept on saying Ku Klux Klan too much. Like, how do I speak gibberish better?
I would relive your life and a different set of core values.
Like doing that gibberish thing, like Gloshko Morakamat Taku Taku, like
a lot of that came from, I first started observing gibberish from my mother and grandmother at our Church of God church as they were speaking in tongues to a fucking frightening degree. That I learned later in improv that act was called gibberish.
That's
so
funny.
that's where I first learned it. I think gibberish is something that you can practice just fucking walking around your house alone and just keep a stream of consciousness and not worry so much about the punctuation of it, but the continuum of it. And that kind of gets you out of the Ku Klux Klan, Ku Klux Klan. I get what you're talking about, but I think if you do it enough, you'll get tired of yourself in that repetition and you'll suddenly become like freer with it.
We just did, Mick, we just did a exercise in our rehearsal on Tuesday where we did a scene back and forth. It was sequential numbers and emotional intent behind the numbers. So it's like 1, 2, 3.
I like that.
And then we just kept going through numbers, and it was a form of gibberish that we had to do and put
Yeah,
emotional intent behind it. And I think that helped.
it does. Both of those things alleviate the burden of having to be clever or
Yeah,
funny with the words.
yeah.
And it suddenly does become an emotional state of being, physical space, and all that. That's where I find the value in that, where you alleviate the burden of like, I got to be funny with what I'm saying.
But that's another one of your drills. You just give a speech to 100, right? So you would just go one, two, three, three, four, 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 or how do you,
Was that in the book? That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do that when I teach presentation skills to business people too. Just have them walk around and do that. To find variety with the numbers, to find variety and tonal variety, and along with emotional
Interesting.
variety, etc. And also, I think it's brilliant in its study of the use of pause and when to pause, when not to pause, the power of the potential energy of a pause between the numbers or between the thoughts is something
What does that sound like?
one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. And I just noticed a rhythm difference too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With business people, it's a real valuable thing because you can demonstrate one, two, three, four, literally one note shit.
Yeah.
Five, six, seven. No variety of tone, no variety
Ah,
of energy, no
one.
variety of vocal intonation, nothing. No variety of emotion, no variety of the dispense of pauses, all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's valuable for anyone that speaks in front of people.
Okay. And what about like just letting go? Like when you first, very analytical people, first time doing improv, they just don't have the ability to just let go and do it, commit to it, find the flow, get out of their way and commit. What's your advice on that?
Tough. It's kind of like the same question, like what do you do at the top of the scene to get out of your head? And it's like the universal question of improvisation. How do you get out of your head? And I
Mm.
just think it comes to through the practice of making choices, and it's almost like the fucking stage reps of just constantly challenging yourself to be silly, make different choices, and do it quickly.
So I
Sometimes I'll
think
have people talk really fast, so that they can't even think what they're saying. Just anything to get that adult brain into a playful state. I often remind people, when you're a kid and you're playing, you're never thinking, how can I play cops and robbers right? You're
huh.
never thinking that. You're just thinking, "Drow." You're just
Yeah.
doing the shit that cops
Yeah.
and robbers would do. And it's hard for the adult brain to do that because you're wanting to say, like I do exercises where I have people do scenes where they're not allowed to make sense. They have to be nonsensical. And the
Yeah.
first thought people have is, how do I not make sense correctly?
Yeah. It's like it's
Fucked up. And that's what adults do. How can I be perceived as doing something that makes no sense? Right.
logically.
That's
I don't want to make a mistake when I'm making a mistake.
right. So I think if you just attack it in different ways and reinvite people's that adult mind into the world of play, you kind of got to trick them. And I think that improv games and some improv exercises are really good at getting people into that space.
Well, I think even right, just dance. Like just dance for 5 minutes, like stupid, and just give yourself like permission to be just.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
hard. That's hard.
It is. It is hard for people. It's hard for adults to do that. Yeah. I don't know.
No, that's good. I like it. What would you say if you had a message as like the so-called guru of improv now? Like, what is your current like? What's your mantra? What's your thing that you're trying to push to students and to people who you are affecting in terms of like the modern improv right now? What's the important? What's the main message you would push?
It's a great question. I haven't thought about it much, but a couple of things come to mind. One is that for a young person, whatever they perceive as like a golden age of improvisation, or it was better then, or when people talk in that way, it's no different. The talent pool is as great as it's ever been.
Yeah.
There are as many funny people in the improv world and the stand-up world as there ever have been. And to not carry that kind of stigma that they're trying to like, wrestle through all of these icons and shit because they're just as funny and just as valuable and just as smart and insightful as anyone I've ever worked with in the last 35 years. The other thing that I think that I would love to instill to people, especially with the way we distribute comedy right now, is that yes, it's very, very, very fucking hard, but it's not as hard as you think. Like you actually can do it. There are tangible ways and tangible steps to make that happen. And those ways of distributing your point of view and your voice are more prolific than they ever have been. So I think those things are kind of out there for me.
And I think your book does a lot of what I'm talking about too. The improvise from the scene from the inside out. I think what it does is give everybody sort of a brand new basic groundwork for how to do this thing more simply than how complicated we tend to make it. And I really love that about what you've done. I feel like that's what I've tried to do with stand up with the Funny Muscle books, is try to give people a methodology with how to begin to do this. And then they can, learn the rules and then break them and bend them and all that stuff. And I feel like that's what that book, not to compare our books, but I really, when I read it, I felt like, wow, this is the first time I've read somebody who's been on stage, who's done it, who's directed it, who's given me a methodology with which to work off of, not bound by, but to work off of.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that you guys know better than I that with stand up, it takes often years to find that point of view and to find that persona and the way you're going to be and all that. And I think the same happens with improvisation. And it's a joy to watch people find that point of view in both stand up and improv. But yeah, it's a little more difficult sometimes with improv to find that. But I love it. And one thing I love about the world right now is I love anyone on like Instagram or TikTok that finds some weird little ass fucking thing.
Yes.
Like they're the whatever the guy. We had a dude. There's a guy in Atlanta, and all he does is sing songs about puppies, and I fucking loved him. His Instagram is puppy songs.
I love it.
And he came to the Annoyance and did a one-person show with a guitar and just sang puppy songs.
And puppy killed.
It was great. I love shit. I love following people. I follow a guy on Instagram, this 80-year-old guy who fucks trees, and I couldn't love it more.
Oh, I know we got to get going. Can you ask him the one final question that we
the
have?
question we always ask all comics or all people we interview is, if you have an hour a day to work on your craft, and that is whether it's joke writing or working on your sketches or working on your improv skills, if you have an hour a day to work on your craft, what's the equivalent of going to the gym and doing 100 push-ups, but for your comedy improv chest?
I think whether you're an improviser or a stand-up or even actors, I've given this advice, and I do it. I wake up almost every day and I write something. I just can start writing and I don't give a shit what I'm writing. And sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like post this or this will be part of a book or whatever and sometimes it's not. But I don't think you can go wrong doing that. It's a volume game, as you guys know. Like if you're in sketch comedy, for every 50 blackouts you work on, you probably get one or two out of that. I would imagine stand-up probably the same ratio of something. And I think that you have to put that volume work in, whether you're an improviser or not. With improvisation, that writing helps your brain just get out of common associations like bars, kitchens, living rooms, office. It just kind of lets your brain go and explore. When I walk to a place I'm going to improvise, I will walk down the street and just either misname objects I see around me, like call them different things that they're not, or I will go into my own little Dada monologues or Dada songs just to get my mind out of the common associations that people make when they improvise and stuff. That's what kind of comes to mind.
That's great. Love it. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate you. Say hi to Jennifer for me.
I will. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.